let's do really elaborate eye makeup for this video where we talk about movies that made us cry. That's a really good idea, Evelyn. That's not dumb at all. You won't really fuck it up by dabbing away your tears. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Evelyn, and today we're going to talk about Pixar movies. I'm wearing my Coco shirt just for this moment. Last summer, my parents and I did a thing where we tried to watch all of the Pixar movies in order over the summer before I left for college, and we succeeded in doing that. And then we also just recently watched the most recent Pixar release, Onward. We all really enjoyed it. We're big Disney people just in general, and we try to go to the theaters for as many as we can. That was actually the last thing we did before we started responsibly social distancing ourselves. I decided that I didn't want to rank these Pixar movies just from best to worst. I have read articles like that. I think they're like too subjective, and I don't like saying this movie is definitively better than this other movie, although I definitely have some of those opinions, but some of them I love equally. There's a bunch of like middle children, right, in the Pixar catalog. Although I do have favorites and least favorites, I wanted to do something that was a little more concrete, and so I decided that I'm going to rank the Pixar movies based on how much they made me cry. And I will give you a little synopsis on why it made me cry. If you guys know me in real life or have been around my channel for a while, you might have become aware that I kind of cry like really easily and a lot of the time. Part of it is my anxiety, part of it is that I have a medical condition where my eyes water, and I could, you know, solve that really easily by using eye drops, but I'm just terrified of things going in my eyes. And then another big part of it is that I'm a very empathetic human and I'm kind of in tune with my emotions or whatever sometimes, and I end up reading and watching a lot of content that makes me cry. And I actually find that if I'm enjoying something and then it makes me cry, I think it's better. I enjoy it more because it really accessed my emotions and made me have a physical reaction. Consider this your official content / spoiler warning. I'm gonna talk about emotional climaxes of these films. There's some parental death stuff, there's some mental health stuff, etc., etc. How many Pixar movies are there?
Here are some movies made by Pixar.
Oh my gosh, no! How many feature-length films has Pixar? Oh my god, I can't talk. How many are there?
Here are some movies made by Pixar.
I know what they are! How many are there? Count them! Ugh. Pixar Animation Studios has released 22 feature-length films. I'm not including shorts on here. A lot of them have made me cry, and I might do a video where I rank the Pixar shorts too, but this is not what we came here for. We came here for full-length feature films. I have recently, like I said, watched all of them with my parents, and this is my definitive ranking of made me cry the most to made me cry the least. I did this in tiers, so the movies that made me cry the most I have rated 5 tissues, and the movie that made me cry the least I have rated 0 tissues. My other idea was to rank them by how good the Ratzenberger cameo is in the movie, so comment down below if you want to see that video because I think that would be hilarious, but that would have required more research on my part. Starting at the 5 tissue films, we have 2 5-tissue films. The first, of course, being Coco. Like I said earlier, Coco is my absolute favorite Pixar movie, and it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's beautifully animated, the storytelling is amazing, and I cried so hard when I watched it. There were a couple of factors that made it personally very emotional for me. The movie was actually announced right around the time that I decided I was going to try to reconnect more with my Latinx heritage, but was not sure how to go about it. My family is Mexican, and the film is set in Mexico and celebrates Mexican culture, and so I was very, very excited to be watching this film. And then the fucking movie was like the most emotional thing. First of all, like I said, it felt like something that gave me an into reconnecting with that part of my family that I'd been wanting to for a while at that point. Second of all, just in general with my immediate family, music is something that connects us as a little trio here in this house. I don't know if you could hear earlier in the background, my mom was playing the ukulele in the other room. My ukulele sitting on my bed right there. We are musical human beings. My father is literally a children's musician. I don't know why that wasn't my first thing I said. And so I grew up sharing the music that I love with my parents as a way to share love with my parents. The whole like family love music connection theme that runs throughout this story. Oh my gosh. And then at this point I've rewatched this movie several times, and every time they play the like up-tempo fiesta version of Remember Me that Ernesto plays. It's not an emotional version of the song at all. It's da 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 da, and there's like dancers, right? I start tearing up because I know what's gonna happen at the end of the damn movie with Mama Coco. And anyway, yeah, I start crying right there and I don't stop until the end of the movie is over. Basically, it's like every 5 to 10 minutes there are tears, and then the last like 15 minutes is just straight like quiet sobbing. The connection that love and music and tradition and family has is just so powerful, and this film is so beautiful, and I'm gonna cry talking about it, so we're gonna move on. So the other 5-tissue movie is Inside Out. This one not only makes me sob, it makes my dad cry too. Gorgeously animated film. One of the best, simplest, straightforwardest, most beautiful representations of mental health I've ever seen on screen. It's just so pure and light and hopeful, but also like deeply, deeply sad at the same time, and that's so good. The voice acting in that movie, on point, and it's so funny too. It's got such highs and such lows on the like me crying because I'm laughing versus me crying because I'm sad scale. Oh my gosh, Bing Bong hits so hard. The idea of growing up and gaining emotional maturity and how that can be scary, and how, you know, memories don't have to just be happy or sad. You can have complicated emotions surrounding things, and oh, it's just so beautiful, and I love it very much, and we're moving on because I'm gonna cry at some point in this video. Moving on to the 4-tissue films. These are films that built up to me crying pretty hard at the climax or at a certain point in the movie, but did not necessarily reverberate all the way through the core of my being. So we're starting actually with Onward. This is the most recent Pixar film. I saw it a few weeks ago and I was so impressed. Shout out to this movie for being, as far as I can tell, the movie that broke the Pixar theory. I hate the Pixar theory. Also, shout out to Frozen 2 for screwing up the Tarzan is their younger brother theory. That one was even stupider than the Pixar theory, and I already thought the Pixar theory was dumb. I mean, part of it is clever. I'm not here to talk about my complex feelings about the Pixar theory. I'm here to talk about Onward, and Onward was so good. The only reason that Onward is not a 5-tissue movie is because I am an only child. If I had a sibling, this definitely would have been a 5 tissue movie. However, I do not have a sibling, and so therefore I couldn't completely and totally relate to the whole deal, but listen, this is such a beautiful story. Again, gorgeous animation, like such a cool world. I love different takes on fantasy tropes, and I thought that the Chris Pratt character, not gonna say anything about him as a person, but I thought the character was going to be super annoying, and he was not. He was so sweet and endearing, and I love the dynamic between the two brothers. They went on a quest. Y'all know I love a quest. Where they had a pet dragon. This was such a good film, and so many people are like hating very harshly on it, and no, I do not condone that. I think this movie was great, and the emotional climax of the film made me sob, like, really hard, actually. I was curled up, like, crying, and my mom wordlessly just handed me a tissue out of her purse, didn't say anything. But I was also laughing at the same time because Pixar is so good at being able to hit really intense emotion and then cut it with a joke. Pixar's just really good. My next for tissue movie is Up, solely because of that first like 10-minute chunk of the movie Up. Like, the emotional payoff for that movie is actually pretty good, and the ending also makes me cry just a little bit, but oh my gosh, the first 10 minutes of Up, honestly, possibly Pixar's best storytelling, just because there's no words. There's no words, and yet everyone cried. Just visuals and music. That's perfect. Perfection. We stan. Oh, Carl Fredricksen. My next for tissue my next for tissue movie is Finding Dory. I have such a soft spot for that quirky little fish. Hi, the camera died, so I had to scooch it back and plug it in. So we have a interesting angle. You can see Ray's hand over there. This one worked for me in a similar way to Onward, where I maybe teared up a couple times at earlier on moments in the film, but the real gem of this is the build-up to the big cry at the end. There are flashbacks to her parents throughout the story. Dory will see different things that trigger memories of her parents, and you slowly learn the story of how she was separated from them and ended up lost and eventually ran into Marlin, and that's how Finding Nemo happens. It gets to the point where Dory realizes that it was kind of her fault that she got lost. And she has held out hope this entire time despite all of these odds. And she, at that point, is so just lost, and she starts forgetting things because she's Dory, and that's what she does, she forgets. And you're so afraid that she's going to fail when you've been rooting for her, and then she finds this shell. And she follows the trail. Oh no, this is it. She follows the trail of the shells. And her parents have been waiting there for her the entire time. And it's just the buildup of all of that to the moment where they reunite. They played the long game and it worked. Also, otters. They're adorable. I love otters. I cry every time I see an otter, so honorable mention for the adorable otters in Finding Dory. Okay, moving on. The next for tissue movie is Toy Story 3. Obviously, this one is known for making people cry, and I am not immune to the scene where Andy gives the toys to Bonnie, and when I was rewatching it, it was the summer before I was leaving for college, so yeah, I cried a little bit at that one. Now, moving on to our 3 tissue reads. These are ones that one little scene or little moment makes me cry every time, but it's not like bawling, sobbing, I can still breathe, I just need to dab a little bit, don't even really need to blow my nose, sort of tears. Starting with Cars, weirdly enough, I would not have thought a year ago if you had asked me, what's a Pixar movie that made you cry, that Cars would be on that list. However, when my family was rewatching all of these movies, somehow Cars lined up pretty well with my graduation. Like, we watched it, I think it was the week before I graduated high school, and was having to face the fact that I was going to have to start saying goodbye to my hometown to move 12 hours away to start a new life in Iowa City. Look how that turned out, but at the time, I was very emotional about it. And there's a song in Cars about your hometown and how even if it's not as great as it used to be, it's still your town and you love it anyway. And that got me. So I shed some unexpected tears, which is why Cars is so high up on this list. The next one is WALL-E. I friggin' love this movie. According to this website that's a database of all these different fictional characters, and it has their Myers-Briggs personality type and their Enneagram numbers, I have the same personality type as WALL-E, which, like, mood. I cry at the very beginning of this movie, the part where he's watching Hello Dolly alone, and then he finally finds Eve, and then she immediately, like, finds the plan, shuts down, and he's, like, by himself, and he's still trying to hold her hand. WALL-E is so sweet, and this movie is so underrated, and more people need to love WALL-E, because I love WALL-E. Next, we have Finding Nemo. You might guess, based on my reaction to Dory and Finding Dory, what moment in Finding Nemo makes me cry every time. It's the moment in which Marlin, thinking that his son is dead, yells at Dory and leaves her behind. And Dory, trying to convince him to stay with her, gives one of the saddest speeches in any film ever. Dory suffers from short-term memory loss, and she has, over the course of the film, started to become better able to remember details. And she's begging Marlin not to leave her because she doesn't forget things when she's with him. She says, "When I look at you, I'm home," and I cry. It's a good franchise, and Finding Dory was a very good sequel, unlike Cars 2. Next, we have Monsters, Inc. So, Monsters, Inc. is really good film. Like, I had forgotten how good it actually is. My mom likes this one better than Finding Nemo, and this one made her cry a lot because she's like, it's a parent-child relationship. Which, like, yeah, I get it. I tear up when Sully has to say goodbye to Boo, which is why this is on this list. However, it just doesn't, it's more of a funny movie to me than it is a sad, emotional one. Next, we've got Toy Story 2. I always cry when She Loved Me, possibly because as a child I was not the best at, like, keeping friendships. A lot of my friends just kind of dumped me in favor of other people, or just because they got bored with me. I'm not totally sure, but I have always related to Jessie the yodeling cowgirl just a little bit, so there's that. Next we have Brave, the moment where the mom is about to, like, fully turn into a bear. Because, you know, they finally fixed their relationship and she might never remember her ever. That's good. Meredith's, like, crying and, like, trying to shoot Trish. She's sewed for her. Next three tissue movie is Toy Story 4. I honestly think that this was more nostalgia than anything fueling my tears, but at the very end of the film, I definitely cried, like, a fair amount. Like, tears were shed. I thought it was a very good continuation and, like, solid ending for Woody. Actually, a lot of people thought that it ruined and invalidated Toy Story 3, but I think that it was I honestly could make an entire video about why I liked the ending of Toy Story 4 for Woody, but like, suffice it to say for this video, it did make me cry. And the last 3 tissue movie is actually The Good Dinosaur. This one, people like give it a lot of crap, and like, I understand it came out right after Inside Out, which was like honestly not fair. It's actually a really adorable film. It has some really beautiful animation moments, and I cried. Yeah. Well, next are the 2 tissue films. These are films where I may have teared up a little bit, but I didn't necessarily like cry at them. So our first 2 tissue movie is Cars 3. This one actually did make me tear up. I think it's a much better continuation of the Lightning McQueen storyline than Cars 2. And I did get a little bit emotional about Doc Hudson and legacy and all that. Next is Ratatouille. This one is a very good film, but there aren't that many like pack-a-punch emotional moments. The moment where the food critic eats the food and remembers that he was a child once and is changed, his heart is forever changed. Like that's a good moment. That's like this. Next is just regular Toy Story, and this one honestly, again, pretty nostalgia heavy reasons for crying. I tear up every time I hear You've Got a Friend in Me, and that's at the very beginning of the film. And now my 1 tissue movies. These are movies where I didn't really cry. There wasn't really very much reason to cry, and they might have actually made me laugh a little bit more than they would make me cry. Both Incredibles movies are on here. I really enjoy the Incredibles franchise, but there aren't that many like tearjerker moments. There are some cute family moments, but they're more like, ah, yeah, let's watch them kick butt together, right? They have like family related issues, but there's no death. There's not like, they're definitely more action comedy superhero style films, and I'm not gonna fault them for that. I just can't honestly tell you that they made me cry. Next is A Bug's Life. Again, this is definitely more comedy heavy than anything. I usually fall asleep during the middle of this movie. It's one of my least favorite Pixar movies, but you gotta give it credit for spawning a Disney attraction that has traumatized generations of children. Not even generations. What, like, Animal King opened, like, around when I was born. So, like, a solid 20 years of children. 20 years worth of childhood lost to It's Tough to Be a And then the last 1 tissue film is Monsters University. This is an interesting prequel to Monsters, Inc. On the one hand, there are lines in Monsters, Inc. that directly contradict the premise of Monsters University. But on the other hand, they flunk out of college and have to work their way from the bottom to the top, and like, that's insane. That's crazy. I love that. It just, you know, it never would have made me cry. And then last but not least, we have the only 0 tissue movie on this list. It is, I am confident to say, the worst Pixar movie in existence. An awful sequel, terrible, just, not a bad movie though. That's the thing. It's very, like, mediocre at worst. It's just a terrible sequel, and that is, of course, Cars 2. I've already, like, multiple times been like, ugh, Cars 2. You should have seen this coming. There are no moments to cry during Cars 2, because it has no emotional core. Actually, it does kind of have an emotional core. It's like, oh no, are Lightning McQueen and Mater going to be friends? And it's like, yeah, because Mater is incapable of not forgiving Lightning McQueen, but also, even those moments don't get a lot of weight, because they're like, oh wait, Mater's gotta go be a spy now. What? I have issues with that. I've always had issues with that. I was a full child when that movie came out, and I was sitting there like, alright, that is the definitive ranking of Pixar movies based on how much they made me cry. I hope you enjoyed this video. I got the idea and then I kind of just could not get it out of my head. Basically, this was an excuse for me to talk about how great some of these movies are in terms of emotional impact, and I ran with it. Comment down below, do you want to see me rank any other movies based on any other weird criteria? Like I said earlier, I kind of want to rank the Pixar, movies based on how good the Ratzenberger, cameo is within the movie. Because some of them are really good, and then some of them are just like, oh shoot, we need to put John in here somewhere. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google John Ratzenberger Pixar, because it's honestly really hilarious, and I don't know what they're gonna do when he dies. It's gonna be Stan Lee all over again. If you like this video and you want to see more from my channel, remember to click that subscribe button and ring that bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. I talk about everything from Disney to books to musicals to... I got a ukulele now, so that's gonna become a really big part of my personality, I can already tell. With that being said, my name is Evelyn, I make new videos every magical Monday, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.